So, good news, everyone. Nigel Farage has woken up today, done a press conference at 11 o'clock this morning, and decided that he is actually once again right wing. So, all of the Bangladeshi nationalists, all of the Remainers, all of the Tories, and any other people who are not right wing that he has brought into his party, well, they're just going to have to accept that actually he's got a really right wing platform once again. And so, I thought we'd just go through some of the things that he said in this, because honestly, it genuinely sounded like I've been watching the Lotus Seaters podcast for the last year, and these are the points that I've extracted from them because literally they're all our talking points. Every single one is something I know I personally have said at least half a dozen times on the bloody podcast. So it's like, okay, I nice to see you getting Sargon pilled, Nige, but do I believe that you're going to stick to it? Do I think that you'll just go, oh yeah, no, actually, all of that was racism the second it becomes inconvenient and the press come for you? And the question is, okay, why now? I thought you were attacking to the centre to capture the centrist vote, Nige. I thought that was how elections were won. What are you doing out on the far right over with me, giving my talking points without crediting me? I'm not trying to sound bitter, but it is annoying. Right, anyway, so I took out basically all of the arguments that he made in this little speech, and I just clipped them so you can go look on my Twitter feed if you want to see them individually. I'll just go watch the entire thing, obviously. So the first thing was that he was like, look, the Conservatives, as well as Labour, but obviously we know Labour are the party of mass immigration, but the Conservatives have betrayed everyone time and time and again on immigration, which is obviously true, right? The Conservatives said, look, we're going to get immigration down to the tens of thousands in practically every manifesto since about 2005, if not earlier. And every time they've failed, and in fact we got completely stabbed in the back with the Boris wave. And so what do we do about that? Well, Nigel's answer is, we need a net zero immigration policy, which is one in, one out, which means that the 3 million net that Boris allowed in, which Nigel Farage mentions, get to stay? Why are they staying? They've been here a couple of years. They shouldn't be here. Boris shouldn't have let them in. They are not yet on indefinite leave to remain. Why can't we just revoke their visas and send them home? Like, why doesn't Nigel Farage say that? Like, the 200,000 illegals that are currently here in hotels at my expense, at your expense, Nigel doesn't say that he's just going to send home. Why? What would be the reason for them not to go home? I just don't understand why the people who you are saying should not have been let into the country just get to stay in the country. That's such a bizarre thing. So you remember the Stephen Edgington interview where he said, well, look, mass deportations just aren't possible. I don't want my name to be associated with mass deportations. It's like, okay, then you're not the guy, are you? Because I want these people to go home, right? The people who arrived in like 2020, 2021, 2022, the millions that were for some reason just let in and turned into an economic burden on the British taxpayer, which you concede in this. Why are they staying? Why are they staying? They've got countries of their own. They should be sent home. Visas revoked. Time to go. Sorry, folks. Anyway, second point is an excess of foreign labour, of course, suppresses domestic wages. Obviously correct. And this seems like it would be some sort of capitalist plot against the average working person. You would think Nigel would be like, right, so those people need to go home then. The Boris wave and maybe others that were let in need to go home. I mean, Rupert Lowe's position of deporting grooming gang members and the people who knew about grooming gangs seems totally reasonable, and Nigel's anti-immigration stance here seems to support what Rupert Lowe is saying, and yet, when it was inconvenient, no, Rupert Lowe out of the party, smear his character, report him to the police, say he was threatening to kill Zia Youssef, and then suddenly be like, yeah, well, he was right about immigration. Anyway, as Nigel Farage pointed out, the mind-blowing number of migrants don't even work, so they just cost us billions in benefits. So when they do work, they suppress our wages, and 40% of them don't even work, which is the mind-blowing number, and that costs us billions in benefits. It's like, yeah, there shouldn't be any foreign people on benefits, right? Like, British benefits should only be for British people, and people born overseas should either fundamentally never have access to British benefits, or to gain access, requires a life of service. So if someone spent 25 years in the military or something, like someone joins in Hong Kong, joins the British military, spends 25 years in the British military, and then gets to retire in Britain, okay, fair enough. Fair enough, you can get a pension. That's totally reasonable. You did your service to our country. And yeah, why wouldn't we'd be happy for that person to settle in our country and raise kids, have a family here? They've worked for it. They bought into the system. They obviously like the country, which is why they're doing it. They're not just a moocher, because at the moment we have literally millions of moochers who are just sucking money out of our pockets, and for some reason we're allowing this. And for some reason they're just like, yeah, that's all bad. And it's like, okay, but why wouldn't they go home then? If they're just here because we're paying for them to be here, and like something like 75% of Somalis in Britain are paid to live in Britain by the British state. Only 25% of them aren't claiming benefits, or at least social housing benefits. They might be claiming other kinds of benefits. Why are they here? Like, why don't we send them back? And Nigel just gets to, yeah, well, this is costing us this money, but nothing should be done about it. Yeah, no, they should be sent home. They need to go home, revoke their visas, send them home, right? They shouldn't be here. Next one. An excess of foreign labour has destroyed GDP per capita wage growth. Good point. Another obviously true point. It, like I said, is a capitalist plot against the native population. The businesses, the international business owners, the ones that really made out like bandits during COVID, they're using mass immigration as a way of destroying your wages. Good point. What can be done about that? Well, preventing mass immigration would lower the competition for the jobs, making it a buyer's market rather than making it a seller's market rather than a buyer's market. And so that would be a lot more sensible. So you would have to say have an absolute zero immigration policy. So the outflow was much greater than the inflow, as in the inflow of zero, an outflow of like 500,000 or 700,000, however much it is a year, and those people will go. And so suddenly wages will go up per capita. But Nigel just names the problem and then suggests no solution. And the only solution he suggests keeps things at the status quo. I said, but that doesn't help. A net zero immigration policy does not solve this problem. Anyway, number 5, Nigel is for discrimination of some kind of migrants against others. And he rightly points out that actually immigrants are not all the same. Some from some countries are worse than others. But then in the next breath he says, yeah, and then I'm not a racist. And it's like, good, Nigel, I believe you. I don't think you're a racist. I don't consider myself to be a racist. But it makes sense to discriminate between kinds of people who come in from around the world. However, you will be called a racist on this. They will absolutely declare you to be someone who is discriminating racially on between different kinds of people. And if being called a racist really upsets you, and I know it does, then you're going to have to just accept that that's the label they're going to use for you. Number 6, the overpopulation problem is the source of the housing shortage, which is causing massive increases in house prices and rent, which is obviously true, but the thing is, it's not the illegal immigrants buying the houses, right? So it's the legal immigrants who can afford to buy the houses because they're the ones that get the jobs. So really, we have to say the number of legal immigrants in the country is too high, and if we want the house market to go back to a normal price point, then legal immigrants have to go back. But Nigel doesn't say this. Number 7, Farage points out that we've imported 100,000 doctors and nurses, poaching them from developing countries, which of course is true, and this does take on the aspect of a kind of neo-colonial resource extraction from our sort of new colonies, unofficial colonies. And that's all true, and that is a sympathetic way of putting it. But he doesn't include the damage that does to our own population. Like, how many people wanted to be doctors and nurses and just didn't get the opportunity because we just imported them instead because it's easier and probably cheaper? Lots, right? There are loads of people like that, no doubt. And making the point that we could have like large-scale training programs, I think that would be a very, very good selling point. I mean, to be fair, he's not obligated to point that out. That's not necessarily a solution. And he could have pointed out that, look, we need so many doctors and nurses because we've brought so many people in. For some reason, the way the left frames the healthcare debate is always the idea that the immigrants basically never need healthcare. So we bring in immigrants to help us, sick English people who need their help for our healthcare. But the immigrants themselves, it's assumed, never get sick. Because otherwise, you look at it, and there's about 25% of the NHS that's foreign-born now. And it's about, or 21%, I think, of the NHS is foreign-born. About 25% of the English population, or the population of England, that's foreign. And so it's kind of like, oh, right, this matches, actually. There's probably a bit of a lag, just because of the number that keep coming in every goddamn year. But I get the feeling if none of those people were here, we'd probably have enough doctors and nurses from native. Anyway, moving on. Number 8, the NHS is completely overburdened by foreigners who prevent British people from getting seen in a timely manner. Stop me if you've heard me say any of these points, folks. But this is obviously true, trivially so. Healthcare tourism is a massive issue. And again, he doesn't propose anything. I mean, a sensible proposal would be turn the NHS into a national health service, as in only people who are British get to use the NHS for free. Foreigners, if they're here, have to pay for it. They just have to pay for their treatment, like they would have to do anywhere else in the world. But no, we do it for free because we're suckers. Number 9, he points out the Turkish barbershops are actually fronts for organised crime. Now, this, to his credit, is something he was actually ahead of the pack on, because you'll notice that Nigel is always way behind the curve. Someone else has always cleared the ground for him to make sure that the thing is safe to talk about, and that they've taken the flak, so Nigel doesn't have to. But on this, it is true that he was ahead of the curve on this, and he got mocked for it by the media. And don't get me wrong, he said, look, you all laughed at me, but I was right on this. It's like, that's correct. It's the one issue you were ahead of the curve on. Well done. Number 10, the publication of crime statistics by nationality is a good thing, but it's going to cause the rise of right-wing parties like it did in Europe, and he doesn't like these right-wing parties. So it's quite paradoxical that he's like, yeah, no, we should release these statistics, but it will cause those evil right-wingers that I don't want to be associated with. And it's like, okay, but the thing is, you're kind of admitting you are that while you're pretending not to be that. And so the question is, Nigel, or Mr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, which one am I dealing with today? Why can't you find an actual comfortable groove to run down? It's okay to be a right-wing populist. Most of the country really are right-wing and populist. They don't want this elitist mass immigration nonsense. Why aren't you just committing? It's such a bizarre thing. Because I don't think you're winning over the sort of Labour lovies. I don't think you're winning them over. I think you're winning over the working class in the north of England and in other places. And these people are very right-wing. Economically, you could say they're quite left-wing, but that's not the issue, right? Like, the issue is not really an economic issue at heart. The issue is a cultural issue at heart. And the issue is the question of, to whom does England belong? And on that question, the English working class are the most right-wing people in the world. It's hard to think of anyone who's more right-wing. Anyway, number 11, mass immigration has caused the import of sectarian politics into England. This is a bad thing, obviously. But how do you prevent sectarian politics between the people who are already here? Well, you've either got to physically segregate them or simply remove one of these communities entirely. Nigel offers no solution to this. And then he tweeted out that he would create a minister for deportations. I thought you didn't want to be associated with mass deportations, Nigel. This is a bit of a turnaround. Again, another U-turn. Now that you've seen which way the wind is blowing, and the Labour Party have been bragging that they've been doing loads of deportations, and this is what I wrote in the summary here, and the fact that Robert Jenrick is pushing hard on English identity, it looks like Farage is just trying to cynically outflank them. Be like, oh, right, okay, well, I'll just go online, find all the right-wing talking points that are obviously correct, and say, this is it. And I don't mean to be cynical about it, but it just seems performative. It just seems like this isn't really sincere. And, you get people like this, easy to whinge, Carl, but do the maths, and we all know the polling. I'm not hearing any solutions. So, yeah, that's true. And don't get me wrong, that is a fair point to make, but I'm going to continue to critique Nigel Farage for being weirdly wet on a bunch of issues that he shouldn't be wet on. He should be out leading the pack on, because they are the popular issues that the British public believe in, and weirdly behaving in this sort of spineless, supine manner is just unbecoming. I don't respect it. And also the way that he treated Rupert Lowe over these issues is just disgraceful. But anyway, thank God today Nigel Farage woke up and decided he was a right-winger again.